The original title for this video was going to be how I filmed a micro wedding with nothing but a gimbal and a vintage lens. I got a call on Saturday around 12 o'clock and I didn't recognize the area code. I was enjoying my weekend, getting coffee with my fiance, and was completely prepared to ask another scam caller to take me off their list. Before I continue, I would like to graciously ask that you hit the sub button and maybe like the video. It's quick and easy, and it helps me on my young YouTube career. Thank you. To my surprise, it was not a scam, but a very nice groom that was looking for a videographer for their small wedding. The catch was it was the next day. Usually this would be too much of a challenge for me on a full day shoot, but he explained that it was a small wedding and it started at 12 and he would only need me for about 4 hours. That worked out perfectly because the shoot was on a Sunday and my full-time job started at 3 a.m. and I would go to bed pretty early on Sundays. So after explaining that this would be a smaller highlight video with no audio being captured, I quoted him for pretty much half of my normal wedding quote. I rushed home, charged all my batteries, and planned out. Listen, I'm trying to get better with each wedding shoot, and to make a very long story short, I was eager to use the lessons I learned from my past experiences to make this video my absolute favorite. The main thing I was laser focused on was the idea of creating tons of movement. A wedding I helped shoot for a while back was with a very experienced wedding videographer, who I respect a lot. And one tip that he burned into my brain was to pretty much always keep the camera moving. I think that's a big thing that is making my wedding videos not look completely professional. I watch back at the videos I've helped shoot, and being there watching that videographer work and the shots in the final video, I wanted to create that because it looked really good. So Saturday afternoon was spent practicing with my gimbal and my vintage Vivitar 28mm f2.8. I thought that this would be my best possible choice because of my past experience with the lens. I had taken this lens on a fishing trip and most of the day was in direct sunlight. Because of this, most of the time my lens was stopped down way beyond a normal aperture. Having an aperture stopped all the way down to about f8 or even beyond is going to create a much sharper image, and I wouldn't have to worry about focusing too much because of the longer depth of field. I left around 10:30 a.m. to the venue. The shoot wasn't until around 12:30, but I wanted to have plenty of time to get B-roll. The venue was a very large outside historical museum. There were a lot of older buildings that I think would make for great cutaways during the shoot. I showed up and started to unpack, and then I realized that the whole shoot was not going to be how I imagined. I left my gimbal at home and I would have to rely on just my hands for the whole shoot. Things were not as bad right off the bat as they seemed. My camera has IBIS, so there was some stabilization. And using a wide angle lens like a 28mm is one of the better focal lengths to use. But that's not the reason why I didn't regret forgetting my gimbal. Once the bride and groom showed up, I realized that this was going to be just me, them, their son, and the photographer. Something in my mind just said, put on the Helios and don't worry about that floaty perfection I usually see in higher end wedding videos. The couple had explained that this was something super personal to just them, and I wanted to express that through their wedding video. Not using a more intrusive piece of equipment like a gimbal, I think I made the couple way more comfortable because this was the smallest wedding I've ever covered. Me and the photographer were about 5 feet away from them while they were getting married under a gazebo, and the Helios did some serious heavy lifting for this whole shoot. I've helped much bigger videographers shoot weddings, and their method is great, very clean and clinical, not missing a moment, but some of the shots from this micro wedding are some of my favorite shots I've ever filmed. The unique bokeh just gave some of the best dreamy cinematic shots I've ever put together. I also use an Albanor vintage Canon FD zoom lens. It's a 80 to 200mm and I was very eager to try it out, and I'm very glad I did. It was one of the sharpest vintage zooms I had ever used, and I plan on filming a more scientific video comparing this lens with a more popular Canon FD 70-200mm zoom. This lens was a great companion to the Helios. I was able to get a high variety of shots, including very personal close-ups. That also, coupled with the macro mode, let me film what I like to call texture shots. Shots of the wood handrails or even the ring on a cowboy hat. The biggest thing I learned when trying to perfect the feeling of a wedding video is two things: lots of movement and faster paced cuts than you always think. I will go deeper into those points in a future video, but the reason I bring this up is because once I knew I had to go handheld, I knew that I had to try my hardest to not sacrifice the idea of movement in the video. My first couple of weddings I shot I cringe at for many reasons, but I think they could be vastly improved if I had simply moved my feet. I was able to move around pretty nice with the Helios, and when using the zoom lens, I would simply keep my feet planted and move, panning left or right or tilting up to down. Thanks if you made it this far in the video. Since you're here and I know you're a true fan of videography and all the faults that come with it, do me a favor, hit the sub button and like the video. I'll see you in the next one.